Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking some time from your busy reInvent schedule to come and listen to this session. We're going to talk today about grounding GenAI with enterprise data, working with AgentCore and Coveo. I'm Nick Bordelot. I work at Coveo. I work in the product relation team. Looking forward to give you some information around grounding on enterprise data. So the agenda for today, we're going to be talking about why grounding is so important. A couple of notions to cover there. Also a bit of architecture about how to integrate Coveo with Bedrock. The secret sauce, no spoiler alert, it's going to be prompting. Everything is about prompting in LLM and the LLM world, and a few next steps after that if you want to learn more. I wanted to start by not bragging, but I want to set the stage a bit so that you understand who we are, what we do. Also give some credibility so that you should listen to what I have to say. We are an enterprise search company. We've been working with many customers, helping them get GenAI to production. This is an example of Dell. Dell is using Coveo to power multiple of their portal. If you want to buy a laptop, if you want to buy material from them, it's going to be powered by Coveo. If you go and look at the support section also, it's going to be also powered by Coveo. They have real complex product, and they use us to provide answer to their user when they try to solve their issues. Same thing with NVIDIA. NVIDIA has all the money in the world. They could be building that solution. They decide to partner with Coveo to offer question answering to their customer through the Coveo solution. Intuit decided to integrate Coveo inside of their own application. So if you're into Intuit, if you're looking to find how to work with the product, if you have questions, also going to be Coveo there. And Vanguard in the financial services area is also a big customer of Coveo. They use Coveo all across the board, internal and external, and that's an example of their personal investor portal. If you're looking to get information around their product, not investing information, but information around their product, that's going to be provided by Coveo. So we help our customer go to production with GenAI. We build a whole solution, but we also have options for our customers if they want to integrate with a solution from AWS to be able to build their own solution. So what I've been talking about so far is the left side of that slide, where we do everything. Basically, we index your content, we build an index, we ground the prompt, we build a prompt, and then we also provide the UI component for you to be able to deliver that on whatever portal you want to deploy it. We decided to help our customers to offer the rest of the platform as a retriever, and then offer integration point with Bedrock, AgentCore, QBusiness, and also QuickSuite. And that's what we're going to be covering today, basically. How to integrate Coveo into the second one into AgentCore, but it's going to be pretty similar if you want to work with QuickSuite or other solution from AWS. That's a slide I stole from AWS that they presented a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was interesting. I fully agree with what's in there. Agentic is probably the future that's going to enable the LLMs to be fully used to their full potential. I was really interested to see that in any case, there's always a dependency on data. If you're working with GenAI, you need to ground the LLM based on enterprise data. You need to ground them so that they don't hallucinate. So there's a strong dependency on data. This is where we come into play. Same thing for agentic AI. There's always a strong dependency on tools and data so that these agents or those models know how to behave and know where to get fresh information. So let's jump into the meat of this presentation, why LLM needs to be grounded. They need to be factually accurate. So for an LLM to be factually accurate, you need to provide them some information. They've been trained on data that is basically dated, and they don't know what's true, what's not. If you ask them a question, they're going to answer, and they're going to basically give you back the information that they got in. If it's not what your brand thinks about what should be told to your customer, they don't care. They're just going to give back the information to the user on the other side trying to get information. If you ground them, it's now a source of truth that you're giving to the LLM, and they're going to be able to provide most accurate information and be factually accurate. If you want your LLM to be also contextually relevant, you need to ground them. LLM don't know much about the users on the other side of asking the question. You want to be able to provide project information, user history, those kind of things needs to be added into the prompt. That can be done by grounding the LLM to make it easier for you. Traceability and trust. When you ground an LLM, you can now do source attribution. If you want your users to be able to trust what they read, you want them to be able to see where that information is coming from. If you don't ground an LLM, the information is coming from the LLM itself, and there's no way to trace back where this information is coming from. When you are grounding an LLM, when you're basically providing them the information that they should be using to give back an answer, this is where you can do source attribution, and then the users can then navigate those links, and they can validate if the information is accurate, and they can gain confidence on the system. Dynamic knowledge update, another important one. Basically, LLMs have been trained on a set of data that is fixed on time. If you want to be able to provide them update on the data, you need to provide that as grounding information. So maybe the information that you want to expose in that LLM is already available out there, is already public, yes, but it's dated on the last time the model has been trained. So you need to be able to provide grounding information to those models for those reasons. The holy grail of grounding is to reduce hallucination. You want the LLM to be able to answer factually with information that you trust, so that it don't provide false answer to your customers. LLMs are really good at lying and having us believe that the information that they provide is true. So by grounding them, you're able to reduce the amount of hallucination that they are doing. And in enterprise, it's just a mandatory. There's not enough information about your enterprise available out there, so that the models don't know about your data. You need to ground them so that they are fully accurate. Now a bit more on what makes a good retriever. So a good retriever needs to have a good depth of knowledge. You need to be able to look at a large amount of data. It's fairly easy to build a vector DB to be able to get a small set of data, to be able to ground your model based on a small set of data. But what we see is in users these days is that they go and talk with an LLM, they ask a first question, and then they don't go back to, in the Google day, you were looking at the results, and then you were navigating to that result, and then you were gone, you were on your own trying to find the information. With an LLM, people go there and they ask one question, they refine, they ask a second question, so you don't know exactly what's the scope of what they're going to be looking for. So you want to be able to provide a larger set of information so that when they talk with that LLM, they're always able to get an answer out of that LLM. They don't end up in a dead end where there's no information to be retrieved. Just like the LLM needs to be grounded, good retriever needs to be contextually aware. You want the LLM, you want the retriever to be able to know about the users in front of you. You need that information to be able to personalize the information being returned. Based on who you are, based on what you have access to, based on what you've done before, a retriever needs to be able to take that information into account and retrieve a set of information that's going to be used to ground the LLM based on who you are, based on what you're currently trying to do. But that's extremely important that retriever are able to be contextually aware. Relevance quality is probably the most important one here. Because you are providing information, in fact, to the LLM before the inference time, the LLM, you're basically telling the LLM just to use his linguistic capacity. You don't want him to use his own information. You're basically telling him, answer user question or decide course of action based on the information that I'm providing you at the bottom. Don't use anything else. Use what I'm providing you here. So if what you're providing is not relevant, is not accurate, then you're going to provide false answer, and that's by design. So relevance quality is extremely important when you are working with a retriever. Execution speed is also important. The retrieval part of a RAG pipeline happened at the first stage, basically. So when you talk with an LLM these days, if they're not grounded, the answers are going to be coming fast, and then you're used to see the answer being streamed. So as the answer is generated, it's being returned to you, and you can consume that information. When you are grounding an LLM, that information is retrieved at first. So there's a first step that's going to be the user basically waiting on the LLM to start to generate an answer. So you need that retriever to be really fast so that user can start to see the answer as soon as possible. Format supported. You can do multiple things with the retriever. You can do multiple things with an LLM. You can do deep research. You can ask them questions to guide you toward exploration. You can do multiple things. The classic way retriever work these days is by returning chunks of information. Passages of information basically are parts of information that are useful for the LLM to be able to answer the question it's being asked. But sometimes you just want to have links so that people can go and can navigate those links to do further exploration. Sometimes you want to do deep research, or you want to answer a really complex question, and you don't need some passages of a document. You need the whole document so that the LLM can look at the whole information and make a mind of itself and answer the full question. So having a retriever that is able to provide you various formats of information is extremely important as well. And being concise and precise, returning the right information in the shortest format as possible will make the job of the LLM easier because it's easier to consume more portion of information. They don't have to decipher what you've returned. They already get the right passage of information to answer the questions. And it's also going to be cheaper for you. The more information you put in that prompt, the more you're going to have to pay for those input tokens. So if you have a retriever that is concise and precise, in the end, you're going to be paying less for that LLM inference. Although input tokens are not the most expensive one, in the end it shows up anyway. We offer a tool set of retrieval tools. We offer that through MCP. Quickly, we have in that tool set we have a passage retrieval, so we're able to extract passages from your documents and retrieve those documents so you can use them to ground whatever tools you're trying to build with an LLM. We also have an answer generation tool in that MCP server, where if you're looking to get an answer and use Coveo more as an agent, basically an question answering agent, you can decide to leave out the prompt, but simply get answer from Coveo as an API and then provide those answers to your LLM on the other side. That might be specific to do something a bit more simple than answering complex questions. We also have search and document retrieval. So if you just want to get a list of results for users to explore and do their own things with the data, we can also offer that. And also full document retrieval, as I was saying before, for a deeper research and for more complex questions, getting access to the full document, not just passages, not just stacking passages one to another, getting the full document, let's say procedure to rebuild a complex engine or stuff like that. You can get those from Coveo, making the job of the LLM much easier. This is an architecture that we suggest to our customer when they want to get started to build an agent. Pretty simple, nothing groundbreaking in there. In the middle, you have an agent. That agent obviously uses an LLM. There's long-term and short-term memory at the top so that they can have a session, they can work in the context of a few interactions. You basically have a conversation with that agent. That agent is connected via gateway. That's a service from AgentCore to the Coveo MCP server. And on the side, you have all the tools I've been talking about are offered there on the side via an MCP server. So the gateway is going to be registering those tools. Now the agent has a set of tools that he can use to do whatever job you wanted him to do. And we're also leveraging the identity provider from AgentCore so that actions that are performed on Coveo are performed as the user who's authenticated on the other side. So if I try to ask a question to an agent, if I don't have access to some specific part of the information that is on the Coveo index, those information won't be coming through to the agent, so there's no leakage of information. So that's also an important part to add in there, to have some more contextual information based on who you are, basically. Secret sauce, it's a combination of prompt and MCP description. Basically, you are building an agent, you are giving him a set of tools, so you need to be extremely explicit around what those tools are, when to use those tools, what they're for, how they work, and all these things. In the end, it's a model that's going to be using those descriptions to decide what to do and how to use your tools. So this is a kind of a meta prompt that we work with a few customers. Global directive, who you are, what's the main job of the agent. So that's up to you to decide what you do with it. But you want to talk about grounding, you want to talk about memory, you want to talk about sources. So there's going to be grounding available. That's going to be done with XYZ tools, so you need to be explicit with that. Make a clear distinction also between memory and fresh information from the retriever. So it's another source of information. Memory is also information, much more limited, but it's another source, so you need to be explicit when to use both. If you want your source to be cited, you also need to be explicit around that. So it's a bit like taking something by the end, a young child by the end, but in the end you do it once, you test it multiple times, but you do it once, and at some point the agent becomes autonomous and be able to use those tools autonomously. We have some questions that go as far as defining some types of question, what is coming from memory, what is coming from retrieval, so you can go much further. But if you build something good at the top, that's a really good starting point to be able to use a retriever in a good way. The other part is the MCP description. So you have an agent, you told them how to use, not how, but you told them basically when to use the tools, what to do with these tools. On the other side, you have an MCP server that contains these tools. What we provide by default is pretty simple. It's there's a retriever agent, which is not retriever, but there's a retriever, which is Coveo. You have tools for search, for retrieval. You have tools for the full document, but we don't know what you're exposing in your index on the other side. So you need to be explicit around what's going to be available through these tools. So you want to first use the tool naming standard. We see so many confusion with customers using dot in the name of the tools. So avoid dots, go with snake Ks, maybe dashes, but tool naming is quite important. The most important one is probably having good description for your tools. Stick to concise description. Once again, that's going to be used by an LLM on the other side. So the more precise your tool descriptions are, the easier it's going to be for the LLM to use those tools properly. Stick to 1-2 sentence, front load the information. If the tool is to create a case, requires authentication, start with creating a case, requires authentication is secondary, so put that secondary. Verbs and type of object that's going to be retrieving. So lots of guideline, we can provide more information around that, but defining your tool the right way is going to make a mile for the difference for your LLM agent to use them. And also schema versus description. When you use an MCP server, you get a whole schema, a JSON schema for that MCP server, which contains description for the tools. The whole schema is what's going to be used at runtime for the agent on the other side to call your tools. So procedure description, arguments, all the things that are required to call your tools are going to be in there. But the only part that the LLM is going to use to basically decide when to use and what to use as of tools are going to be the description. So they are part of the same bundle, but they are used for different things. So make sure that you provide good description for your tools. That's basically what I had planned for today. We have a booth around the Atlassian booth. If you make the tour of the Atlassian booth, you'll find Coveo. It's booth 1529. We also have a AI masterclass series. Those are webinars. I think there's probably one around every 2 weeks or every month. It can be used. You can use the QR code here, or you can go on coveo.com to find the latest AI masterclass. And I have to tell you to go to the app and fill the survey. Actually, it'll be appreciated if you fill a survey to know how to improve. And there's a few more minutes if people have questions, happy to answer questions. Or if you want to come talk, I'm also available. I'll be at the booth for the rest of the day as well. Thank you.